so it may skip a little bit, which I've been told. My apologies. I'm trying to work on that by eliminating some stuff there. But either way, this is a reading for Cancer, May to June 2025, or whenever you find this. How I read the cards is I go through each of the cards individually with its clarifier. And in this case, it is the main card out here, and then this will be the clarifier and so on. I will sort of tie it all in together as we go through, and then for the initial part of it, and I've also got the cards at the bottom of the deck off to the side. I'm also going to be using the other deck, which would be the Archangel Power Tarot deck, and so we'll get some clarification on also. Okay, so we'll just get right into it, just going through sort of the general means of the cards. So, I mean, Ace of Swords is, of course, the card of getting clarity, hearing news, getting clear in your mind about certain things that may have been a little bit confused about. And again, this is just the general area of it first, and then we'll tie everything in together with its clarifier. Judgment independently is also a card indicating that you're making some kind of a big decision, or there's some kind of moment of epiphany. And it does look to me like it's along that line, certainly because of its clarifier, Ace of Swords with the Judgment. This is really coming to terms with something and really understanding or getting some sense of a situation that you previously had some difficulty or challenge around. We also have the Queen of Pentacles, and it's almost like we're looking at things about how we go forward. What's our finances looking like? How do we look after ourselves? What are the things that matter in our lives? And all the practical things are what you seem to be focusing on. There's been some real hardship around that as well in a more general area. And again, tie this all together, sort of spirituality and all of that as well. But the 10 of Wands is, very burdened by a lot of the things that revolve around, at least in this particular instance, it's highlighted around finances and things that would otherwise nurture you, or things that, deal with your grounding and your foundation. We also have the Seven of Swords. So it feels like you're kind of keeping to yourself about a certain situation here as well. And I feel like there's a lot of quiet around all of the burden, a lot of the things that you're starting to feel overwhelmed by. We also have Seven of Pentacles. So a lot of the things that you have been trying to materialize or make good decisions around, it just seems like there is some kind of, you're holding your own and you're pushing through. It's not like you're being stymied, stopped, anything like that, but you're still in a very contemplative space, I would say, from May to June. And certainly it does seem like there is some kind of a delay with the Three of Wands, but there is definitely momentum, lots of one energy, lots of very grounded energy as well. So Nine of Pentacles also speaks to things being in around our levels of independence, our financial states. But I see a lot of creativity here. I see a lot of momentum here. Queen of Wands could also speak to Aries, Leo, Sagittarius individual here as well. And I'll tie this on, guys, as with a summary, but this is just going through the cards on a general level. I have pulled off cards on the side as well relating to finances and how to overcome obstacles. We also have the Eight of Wands. Could be message or news or something that's coming in here, that some kind of an idea, but there's also something in around family. And certainly this does represent family, could be anybody that you consider to be family. Doesn't have to be bloodline, but certainly there is definitely some kind of direct correlation to legacy and thing being very long term for you. So whatever it is that you're planning on doing here, it does seem like there is something that's coming in fast around that legacy scenario. Nine of Cups tells me there's still a lot of confusion. Could be also confusion about choosing, or your level of choice. But certainly there's going to be clarity in many ways here, because it starts off with the Ace of Swords, and of course Knight of Swords is all in that same realm of getting a clearer idea. You're a very emotional, sentient kind of person, somebody who has a very deep level to them, and I would say quite sensitive, sort of poetic kind of soul. But the Four of Swords is you in that contemplative space, still distant in some way, almost numb to your own emotions here, with that Knight of Cups next to the Four of Swords. So it's almost like there's a certain level of restraint and pulling back. And it's almost like you were in stasis in some way. So now to kind of tie this together and sort of see where things are at. And again, I pulled other cards off to the side, which would be pertaining to your finances with the Fool and all of that. But we'll go through those in just a moment. All right, so starting off with the initial cards. So again, I say that this is almost some kind of like it's like a deep confrontation with yourself that you're going through. These are the cards with the Ace of Swords, the Judgment, and then we've got just below that is the Ten of Wands. You know what that really kind of speaks to me about is, you're really putting yourself on, you've got overwhelming inner dialogue going on right now. And it just feels like it's filled with guilt and fear and this relentless need to prove something. It's like you're coming to terms with some kind of egoic death. And what I mean by that, it's all figurative, of course, it's not literal, but egoic meaning, you've got this constructed idea of what the self looks like. And it seems to be where things are really stuck. So it's like you've now decided, you had a picture in your mind of how things would go, who you would be, how things would turn out, but you're realizing that life has, a lot more obstacles in the way, and sometimes they hit you all at one time. And so because of that, it sort of sends this gripping fear or, relentless guilt around things because you're not able to sort of figure it out. Point here is not to it's to go through it. It's fine to have an idea of who we are, and to live up to it. And it's not, but you don't want to be coming to a place where you're belittling the self for learning and growing. This is something new. This is not something you've done before. There's no reason why you would have, a really strong sense where you're at when you're just trying to figure something out. So what I would say again is this is more along the lines of an ego death. So again, this is also where there's a transformation taking place, very strong transformation. Because the Ace of Swords with the Judgment, it's a bit of a wake-up call here. Again, this is an epiphany moment. This is where something is really striking you, where you're actually getting a sense of truth and the false self that you've come to realize, that you've been pinning on yourself, and it's something that's been quite negative. But in actual fact, you're trying to some of the burden, because the burden with the Ten of Wands tells me you've been on a heavy overwhelm. So again, this is having you're starting an idea that that sense of self that you initially had come to turn, like you believed that that was who you would be. It's now a burden because you're trying to make things happen too fast. And so I would say here that this is you carrying burdens that may not even be yours. So just because something doesn't work out in the immediate doesn't mean it's not going to work out. It just means that in the current situation, you're taking on things that are not your responsibility. So I feel like you're almost hiding from your own heart here, because there's so many, the swords, even with the swords, this is like, hiding from self. It's frustration. It's, frustration with lack of progress with the Seven of Pentacles. It's things defending you're trying to defend some kind of sense of fragile hope. But, ultimately, this is something that you're pinning on yourself. If you took yourself out of the equation and just said, I need to accomplish A and C and I will get there, in the whatever time it takes me to pay off this bill, whatever time it takes me to finish this schooling or finish a course or exercise, create a develop a routine, whatever it is, whatever that goal is for you, you have, you're putting a timeline on it, which is fine to have like a timeline when you're setting goals for like a 3-month goal or a 6-month goal. And if you don't hit the target 100%, not a big deal. You just go back, regroup, and then you cut a different angle. But when you actually have something hard and fast that things, have to look this way, have to be, accomplished in this certain sort of time frame, it really puts too much on you that becomes deflating. So again, that's why the lack of progress, and again, all of this, vision of, independence and all of these things are here. With the Seven of Pentacles, still planning, like you still have a lot of things that you can work from up, and especially with the Seven of Wands, you're willing to sort of defend that territory. But the vision of independence and stability is, it looks so far from your grasp. When I look at the picture here, I mean, it just seems like everything seems so far away for you, but that's not usually how it works. When you start taking small steps towards each day, it looks like it's nothing, but it actually amounts to something at the end of things. things. And so that potential really is something that is going to manifest. But again, it's, unable to get to personal empowerment and legacy, with the Nine of Pentacles, the Ten of Pentacles, and this is definitely good money. This is definitely something that will give you something down the road, but it's hard earned. Um, what I mean by that is he doesn't just show up, okay, except for that guy who won 80 million or something in BC, but I think, or 80 million, I think was the biggest jackpot. But the whole point is, on average, we have an idea of what our story will look like, and you're almost torn between collapsing and then there's this possibility of self-redemption where things look good. So you're on the edge of that story. You're creating all of this mental pressure for yourself and this level of isolation, and again, maybe the story is letting go of some of the things from the past that you misidentified with. Like a lot of us hang on to the story of our childhood, or the friends that we had, and then we forget that we make new friends. Whatever, when you start going into a new path or a new career, we make new friends, and it takes a little bit of time to find that niche. But ultimately, committed to your own goal, yes, it's a bit isolating, but when you commit to your own goal and then you start to build on that, and then you start to be really, successful with an aspect of it, then it starts to draw people to you. So the point is right now you're in a place of mental pressure and isolation. I feel like you're sort of cutting yourself off with that Ace of Swords energy. This is again overthinking, and it's certainly self-criticism. It's almost a level of identity confusion here, especially because we had a lot of the sevens coming up here too. Seven of Pentacles, and we also had the Seven of Cups. So so either way, again, I feel like it's just way too much overthinking, self-criticism, identity confusion. And to me, that also is an indicator, way too much time in the thinking aspect when you could be focusing on healthier things. So the point is yes, there's a lot of hidden pain here with the Seven of Swords, but you stay in that pain and recycle it and recycle it and recycle it until you make some changes and do something that involves growth. You have to break your own pattern, put yourself into, everything. When you tend to put your body into a shift, meaning go out and walk every day or commit to something physically changing your routine, then you'll see that it's easier to commit to these other things. So you have to sort of break your own mind, your own frustrated mindset, because again, it starts to cycle in on itself, and so you end up, everything pointing to all of this hidden pain, and then you build on it, and then there's avoidance, and then there's shame, and then you're not honest with yourself because then you fear judgment, and then there's nothing but judgment that can come. Other people start to see and feel and smell all of those levels of burnout or extra burdens that you're carrying or inadequacy. They smell it and they feel it, and they actually oftentimes will take advantage of it. So it's really about you creating the best sense of, better you by doing things incrementally, small things every day that build you. And you may not see the value in it right off, but when you actually see where it ends up at the end of a week or 2 weeks, you'll start to feel a little bit differently. If you take the vitamins, and I'm not, professing everybody needs to take vitamins, although I am a, vitamin proponent, but, doing things that help you to eat better or create a garden, do something that is giving back to the society, the world that you live in, basically, because when you build that, you start to see that you can affect your world in some way. So again, the Ten of Wands is that burnout that we had there, and the Nine of Pentacles here is a certain level of isolation. Again, this can be emotional because of the cards that came out there, emotional, family related, or a mix of things. There's also, again, that fear of failure that's showing up here as well. Stagnation was the Seven of Pentacles because everything's kind of at a bit of a stall. Still looking at things from the distance. Either way, it just feels like you feel like you're wasting your life and not measuring up. So in actual fact, it's one foot in front of the other. It's, if you keep living in the past or looking at the past and making that your future, then that is not a future. That's you living in the past and just stuck. So the only way to go forward is to, Start reading more on subjects that you have interest in. Start building skills in the areas that you have interest in. Start to see what your hobbies, likes, and dislikes are. Go to groups. There's meetup groups on, the internet where you can talk to people about things of a similar interest. But it's more than that. I mean, these are things, though, too, that sometimes you have to even take yourself out of just the norm. And again, when you shift the body, it will help you to shift the mind, because the mind is something that perpetuates, but the body is something that's in contrast to that. And so it helps to, so when your body goes out a walk or a jog or lifts a weight or does something, it'll actually shift the mindset, because the mind can't hang on to what it's trying to hang on to when the body is moving it in a totally different direction. So anyway, this is, again, the Ace of Swords is strategic intelligence as well. So when you get that clarity and you get that sense cutting through the illusions, and you really start to get clear on things, because again, that Judgment card is coming in with that Ace of Swords. And what that speaks to is in your talk. So you're speaking to your inner strength. You're trying to find the things that, when you have an interest in something, you don't know that it's your strength. But when you actually take some steps forward and keep going forward, then you realize that it becomes a strength, and that there's a fire there, that there is some kind of energy or passion or creative sense of something behind it. So again, we're not one dimensional. We're not one career. We tend to do many different things in our lifetime, and then we kind of, culminate everything together and look at the totality of who we have become out of those, 15 different career paths, different interests that we had. We don't ever just, on the average, I've yet to see, they say I think it's 7 career paths that we choose in our lifetime on the average. I have yet to see anybody just choose one and that's where it stays. So like I said, look at all things that you take interest in, and sort of, look for things that you can explore within those areas. But anyway, Queen of Wands is still in that, this is where the real fire is. This is Aries, Leo, Sagittarius. Oriented, this can represent you or somebody else around you, but very dynamic kind of energy, somebody who has a lot of self-expression, basically. And this could even be you as but either way, we also had that Three of Wands that was coming out there. So coupled with the Three of Wands, and that Queen of Wands, that's long-term potential. You're just at the doorway of something. And of course, it did come out with the Ten of Pentacles. So whatever it is that you're planning on doing, I think on the average, and again, this could be many things, because we are spiritual. So you want to address your spirituality, you want to address your physicality, because one supports the other. And then there's, your family dynamic, and then your foundation. You want to make sure you have everything sort of in place to be able to build on. So long-term potential is with the Ten of Pentacles, and this is all about security, growth, and generational healing. So it's something here about a path that is going to be very long-term value, but it's a long-term investment. So it really feels like you have the tools to overcome these difficulties, but it's coming through with brutal honesty. So that Ace of Swords says, wake up. Smell the coffee here. This is where, you have to start looking at your, write it down, because when you're stuck in your head, it'll just go round and round and round, and then you go back and then pick up that piece, and then you go back round and round and round. But you're writing it down, pros and cons. What are the things you want spiritually? What are the things you want physically? What are the things that you want in terms of family? What do you want from relationships? And then you go out and you kind of independently study those things. How do I want someone to treat me? How would I, effectively go out to treat someone based on our value or shared, belief systems, whatever. Like, I'm just giving random examples here. But even with a career path, what are the tools or the skills that I need to show up with? And how long would it take me to learn in a course situation? Don't try to do everything at once. You do one thing at a time. You don't want to get out too far ahead of yourself. But when you write it on paper, you start with the 3-month goal, and it's just that initial initial truth, and then you do daily movement toward it, toward that, even with the physical practice part of it. Because again, one supports the other. When you're mentally stuck, then you have to physically do something to break the mental energy. When you're physically exhausted, then you have to do something with the mental state to kind of balance it out. Do you need to walk? Do you need to run? Do you need to stretch? Do you need to dance? Do you need music? You don't want to be stuck in inner chaos. You want something to sort of break the silence. So again, when we get to the card of the Eight of Wands. There's definitely some kind of information that's coming in here pretty quick, but we also have the Queen of Pentacles. So there's something here that kind of speaks to grounding coming through a connection. So whether it's you or someone who's older, could be female or male, energy doesn't matter, but it's somewhere where you need to speak or talk to someone that may have more of a nurturing quality about them. So again, it's all about the small victories first. So that Seven of Pentacles is when you take a look at all the things that you have an interest in, you match it up to a skill set. What do I need to learn? What do I need to be really good at? And you start with the one and you just keep building on it, because it's the small victories first, and that's long-term work. And then, it's where you are in that space of evolving. So, and when you evolve, it evolves in a that you don't see necessarily because you're busy doing the work. Don't be busy just to be busy. Do a task that you has some kind of end. Like it's in other words, if you're learning a skill and you need to be physically fit for it, then you start to do day practice, waking up at a certain time each day, doing 10 sit-ups or whatever it is, and then have a pattern, and you keep addressing that each day, because your soul is demanding some kind of evolution here, because you're just very strongly, whoever this speaks to, clinging to patterns and pain. And it's like you want to walk through all of this and find the psychological understanding of things. You want spiritual insight. You want to actually have practical tools that you can apply to something so it actually heals you on many levels. So basically, again, this portion of it is really telling me the ego's unraveling here. Your soul is starting to surface. This is a little bit around the divine timing, so it's going to speak to you all a little bit differently, but it is starting to force a choice, a decision. That's what the Judgment is. It's a decision starting to, one decisions are coming up for you where you can actually start to clear the way. Getting rid of the false illusions, the false identities that things were going to be easy. They're nothing ever easy. Everything has challenge to it. If it wasn't, we wouldn't feel satisfied at the end of the day. Oh, I've overcome it. So the point is here that this can also be about soul contracts, that we don't remember agreeing to, and it's a very sacred sort of thing when it comes to the Judgment card. So this is something that you have to almost surrender to. You don't keep thinking about the things that you can't control or change, and to sit and put ourselves in a negative headspace and devalue ourselves. Oh my God, the world can do that for you. The whole thing about living life is an ego. It's an ego hit. Everything's an ego hit. When you go into a work situation and you don't get along with people or whatever, that's an ego hit. Everybody to tear each other down. It's how you behave. There's actually a CIA agent I watched on the internet. I just love her. She said she was running with the New York Police Department at that time. It was not very favored. And as she was running through, she was with a group of, and I guess the people, onlookers were, harassing, giving them the finger and all of this stuff and mouthing off. And anyway, she started to, in turn, she turned around and did the same sort of thing. And I guess her command, whatever, came up to her and, grabbed her by the collar and said, it doesn't matter what somebody else's behavior is. It's, your behavior. And so she had to take accountability and get back in line and forget the reaction, because once you have a reaction to somebody else's reaction, they control you. So the point is, I'm not saying don't have boundaries, but pick your battles wisely. The whole point is to have control, but not to shut off, because when you totally shut off, then you're also creating an rigidity, and when there's that much rigidity, it's difficult to find solutions because you close yourself off from possible solutions or coordinating and implementing with other people. The whole world is going to hurt you in some way or other. It's how do you, how much can you handle, being hurt? I guess that's maybe not the best way to put that, but it's more along the lines of, would you, there was an episode of something I watched as well one time, if you're ever hurt in love, the whole point is, would you, it was Donna, oh my God, Eric in that 70s show. He made some reference to, he didn't want to be in love with her again, or he wanted to block because it was too painful. And so this little angel or whatever, or devil angel, what it was, came through to say, I'm going to take away all the memory. And then he started thinking about all the memories and some of those good things. Some of them were good things. So he didn't really want to remove all that, despite the fact that there was pain. And I think that's true for life. You know, you have to take the good with bad, but you also have to know when to detach yourself from something so that you can grow. You can't hang on to the past. You can't hang on to the memory of something other than it was a part of who you are and it helped you to grow and to see a part of yourself that you might not otherwise have been in touch with. Anyway, I do digress. So then when we get into where was it? Eight of Wands, Ten of Pentacles, Nine of Cups, Knight of Swords, Knight of Cups, Four of Swords. Okay, so I want to go into, I'll go back to those here in a sec, but we also have the Knight of Wands. The Knight of Wands is the bottom of the deck card, and that was next to the Hanged Man. So in itself, those two cards indicate one is stymied action, the other one is action, of course. So this is where you're sort of, I feel like you're sort of stuck. You know, you're kind of escaping in some way, you know, a measure of escape however you use, whatever your escape is with pain. I feel like there's an escape here, and then there's some kind of movement. So, like something impulsive. So, it's almost like, you know, you're being still, and then you're listening, and then you're transforming. But there's almost a little bit of, you know, a fight to get out of this. You're in a spiritual mode, but you're also fighting to go forward. So it's like spiritually, you feel like you're at the threshold of moving towards something, but you're not quite able to cross yet. So it's something along that line. Also, where you're kind of questioning things like truth versus self-deception, you know, because that's also where that Ace of Swords came out, you know, because Ace of Swords and the Seven of Swords. So you know you're not lost. It's almost like you're just choosing to run, you're avoid. You know, because this was, you know, a card of, we also had that Knight of Swords in there, Seven of Swords, and sorry guys, just trying to find our Knight of Swords in here. Because the Knight of Swords is that card of the man who's running, and what I mean by that is it's like you're avoiding truths you already carry. There's things that you already know, and it's, you know, it's fears, and so because you're running in some way, they're avoiding it. You know, you're creating habits and crutches and creating masks, you know, about it. When in actual fact, you know what the truth is. The truth is, you know, sometimes it is a little black and white. Sometimes people are shitty. Sometimes, you know, it was a bizarre kind of situation and something you can't really rationalize. So, you know, until such time that something changes in that area going forward, you know, let it go, move on to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, because I feel like you're not really asking for real help because you're internalizing everything. There's that belief that nobody gets you, or that you know, if you ask for help, that you're considered weak. And this is not the situation. The point is we all help each other. There's some friends or some people that may be good for, you know, connecting and being supportive, and maybe they're going through something else too much so that they support, and so you lean on the other friends that maybe have some other tools or just escape routes. Let's just go out to a movie or whatever. Then you've got other friends or other people that you can network with to build a business. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can't throw everything, all of your issues, you know, internally into yourself and expect to actually have growth, because it has to come out externally in some way. So I feel like, you know, you're internalizing, like I said, too much, you know, about that, again, about no one getting you. Nobody gets anybody, you know, 100%. You know, that's what we're all here for, is just to kind of explore. Yes, we're going to be judged right, left, and center. It makes no difference. Everybody judgy, judgy. But the whole point is who are you? You know, who are you to you? You know, and how do you want to show up in the world? You know, this is your life. And are you wasting your potential just because somebody says, "Oh, I don't think you're good enough"? Like, is that really how we want our lives? You know, the whole point is you can live in pain and try to align to everybody else's expectations, or you can take the pain and be who you really are. You know, and that is more productive, and it leads to choices that are more aligned for you. And I also think here too, with that Seven of Wands that was showing up, sorry guys, the Seven of Wands that came out there, well, we actually had the Seven of Wands and the Eight of Wands. So again, these are kind of sequential cards, and I do feel like that is also telling, because it went 7, 8, and 10 wands. So this is really where, you know, you're starting to nurture something within you, because the Seven of Wands is standing your ground. It's where there's a bit of resistance. There's a bit of hope here with this card, and it's like, I feel like you're resistant to love at this time. And that keeps you locked in this, I have to fight against the world. And you may have to show up that way for a time, saying that, saying to yourself, this is how I have to show up. This is what I have to do to be me and live free in my spirit, because this is a lot of wand energy, and that's creativity. That's a spark, but it can also misdirect you into an escape instead of expression. So be careful of that. Again, with the Ace of Swords, which is coming out quite a bit here, like, this is sharp intellect. This is, you can see through lies, including your own. And it also means you can also stop numbing yourself, because again, Ace of Swords, next to that Four of Swords, you're numbing yourself, and because it was right beside the Knight of Cups. So there's something there emotionally to awaken to. Your potential for independence and prosperity is here with the 9-10 of Pentacles. You're not doomed. It just feels like that because you're allowing yourself to be stuck in a low vibration energy. So when you're in that low vibration energy, nothing looks good. The tree doesn't look green enough, or too rainy out, or whatever. It's moving, it's trying to shift your mindset. And you can only do that by building stable routines. And that means you have to shift your course into what is important to you. What are your belief systems? It doesn't have to be about who all the important people are, because you should always be number one. Otherwise, you're no good to yourself. But emotional depth, and it's not to say, being callous and uncaring. It just means, making sure that you look to your needs first before you're completely giving over things of value of yourself to others. So look after your own needs first. But either way, emotional depth and intuition is really what I would say here. The pain is intense. It's coming from the heart. You feel very deeply, and that's a power. It's not a curse, because the point is, Ace of Swords is doing the work, the mind work. It's asking yourself, what do I pretend not to know? Whose pain am I carrying if it's not mine? Hi, Coco. And you want to say to yourself, if I died in a year, what would I regret not doing? How do they say, what would I want my epitaph to say at the end of my life? What if I had kids, and my kids will look back on me and say, oh, I just sat and thought about my pain all the time. There's going to be things that you want to look back and say, this is what I stood for. I tried to change the world in this way. And again, when you start to look at what your burdens are, that'll help you to figure out what is important to you and what you value. Because what you burden yourself with, what you carry, is what's important to you. And again, how can you carry it better? How can it be less of a weight? So sometimes, it's just saying some of the simple things to yourself. I'm still here. I survived every day. I'm allowed to change. I don't have to be who people think I am. I can, get new friends or get new groups of people around me that will see more of my value. Maybe those other people will come back around again, but at this time, it's all about you. And I feel like you need to channel your chaos, because only in chaos do you really start to because like, if you only had small shifts and change, necessarily notice the change. But when you're in chaos and there's a lot of emotion, you need to direct that chaos somewhere. So you need to put it into something constructive: exercise, art, music, movement, expression, whatever it is, to unlock the wisdom that's out. Because otherwise you're just building up all this energy inside, and then you turn it on yourself. But I would say right now, sorry guys, just gonna take a drink of my water. What I would still say, though, is that you've got this little inner war going on right now. And I feel like you're under, heavy self-judgment. Truths are starting to come up here now. They're surfacing, whether you want to see them or not. You're starting to realize life is not as easy as maybe something where people weren't, people have fallen away because they didn't show up in a way that you thought was honest and legitimate, and they were different than what you expected. But either way, you only look after your part things, meaning don't try to fix it. If somebody wants to, if everybody is free to judge and to do or to interpret you in any way that they want. It doesn't mean you have to believe it. And if it's a negative representation of how they choose to see you, fine, move along. You just let go and move on to another stage in your life, start building there. But either way, I feel like you're going through a potential breakthrough. And with the first, sometime in this 1 to 2 week range, and that's where I feel like you're going to stop resisting the inner call. And it's something of, it's a deeper kind of withdrawal, but I would still say in over the next couple of months, I feel like you're going to start support systems that you're going to start engaging in. And that means there's going to be some emotional progress. There's a reconnection with a purpose and a new sense of self respect that's starting to emerge. You now realize in around that time that you're not broken, you're becoming, you're not weak, you're facing truths without armor. You're not alone, you're loving deeply and it's unraveling. So what is it? Rumi said the wound is the place where the light is you. And there was some kind of, I think it was a Japanese teacup or something where it shows, it's been broken. And wherever it's been broken, it actually is stronger in that when it's been reconnected. So I would say that overall, the cards still speak to a lot of energy around Sagittarius, Aries, Leo, fire signs, basically. And I would still say that the traits that are kind of coming up here for you are that you're restless, you're impulsive, there's a desire for movement, internal conflict about your identity and what you consider freedom. I feel like you want to move, you want to express, you want to explore, but I feel like you're scattered and you're self sabotaging. And because of that, there's also some earth signs in here because there's a lot of earth energy here, which was the Queen of Pentacles, the Nine of Pentacles, and the Seven of Pentacles. But again, those traits are a need for stability. That's very important to you. So you have not achieving enough, and your self-worth is tied to your productivity or success. Instead of waiting for and it doesn't matter, even if you had a job and you lost 18 of them in 2 weeks or 4 months or whatever it is, it makes no difference. If you learned a skill, that's all that matters. You learned a skill, you took something from it. Doesn't matter if everybody liked you or disliked you. What do you want of it? Yes, a paycheck is great, but also make sure you gained something, you learned something from whatever it is that you've done. Because, like I say, on average, they say we do 7 careers in our lifetime. So, again, you're looking for stability. There's a fear of achieving enough. There's self worth that's tied to, some idea of success here for you. You're really striving to be grounded. And I feel like you feel like it's out of reach, but it's not. There's some Scorpio Pisces kind of energy with the water signs, Judge, Hangman, Seven of Swords. And I feel like that's where you've got these illusions. That's where the avoidance is showing up. That's where there is this sort of spiritualist kind of energy. Um, and again, I do feel like that's where there's a lot of internalization is that with that water energy. So again, part of that is spiritual transition, and then part of it is because you're going through the psychological pit. Don't get stuck there. Each day, only take a small amount and do something physically with your body. Heal the body, heals the mind. And actually, they also there was something I was reading about. A lot of psychological problems are actually a lot related to the stomach and the digestive tract and the types of bacteria that you have in your stomach. Look it up. It's actually quite interesting. A lot of depression or a lot of anxiety, a lot of those things are correlated to the bacteria in the stomach. So if you can sort of write with probiotics or write the balance in the stomach, and again, if you have a lot of bacteria in your teeth, those kinds of things, also introducing, bad bacteria, which also affects the brain. So the body is a system, and we have to remember that. But Gemini, Libra, Aquarius is also showing up here too. Again, with the overthinking, the scattered thoughts, rationalizing, self deception, Seven of Swords, all of that. And you need to get clear on some things. probably, I would say, the most dominant energies here were the fire and the earth. And so I would say that's really around more so your need for freedom and identity. And you're trying to demand success out of something here, but it feels like it's very much out of reach. I feel like your conflicting parts are that you want to grow and change, but you're also numb and looking for escape. So, by naming those two things, and also say to yourself, what are you trying to protect? And that's something that whatever you're trying to protect, that's the very thing you need to try to explore in a healthy way to build up. And so, also examining how do you unify things that are of value to you so that you're not fighting against your own belief systems and values. So again, it's about reframing things. So you want to hold beliefs like, if you're always saying things like, I always mess things up, or nobody sees me, or it's too late to change, or whatever, how you sort of identify those things. You identify these three things as beliefs, and then you ask, it 100% true, and what's the consequence of believing this? And if it's quite negative, are you going to continue to go down that track? Who would you be without those negative thoughts? And start disrupting that neural loop and start to look at your options. So you want to also have things that will anchor you. So recalling a time when you felt confident or strong or at peace, start visualizing, um, yourself, building up a skill or building up something that's important to you, and then repeating it with other strong emotional memories. So again, this is, where you start, whenever you start to feel overwhelmed, and there's a lot of chaos, breathe. Go deep, envision like a circular ball above your head or in front of you, a color or a shape or something that, brings you peace, or making a sound, whether it's om or whatever it is. These are the things that help you to kind of burn away the negative thoughts, interrupt the thoughts, and then also just kind of looking at yourself in the future in 2 years' time, once you've done some healing and purpose, well, start looking back on even the week. What things did you do that were healthy for yourself that week? And then, what did you stop doing? And how do you feel? You know what I mean? So that way you get sort of a measure of your own success in small incremental ways. So what daily practice helped you to feel better? What daily thought pattern helped you to feel better? What do you know now that you didn't know before? So, and sometimes they say even writing like a letter. I did this when I was a kid, letter to your future self about where you'd be, what you'd want to be doing, how you saw yourself, and how your world looked. And then you kind of go back to it and stick it in the time capsule. But either way, like I said, I just feel like you have a need for freedom, and you're starving to, for some kind of grounded stability. I feel like you're torn between, again, something about the shame and how you perform, and something about identity confusion. But again, remember, you're not broken, you're birthing into your true self, and that only comes from pain. So, if you're happy all the time, you would change nothing. So the point is how do you become the person you want to become? And that is by identifying the things that you value. And you won't know what you value because other people and the rest of the world will fill in all those blanks for you until you choose to stop for a moment and consider, reframing your beliefs. I'm in this much pain. So clearly I value friendship, or clearly I value progress, and I value skills. So even if you're, doing very poorly in those each area, it's what you do every day that will matter. It's not in that moment what's the big deal. Okay, now I'm just going to flip into the next things here. All right, so this is, now we're into the Archangel Power Tarot deck. So the Five of Ariel, you needn't current challenges alone. Help is nearby. Negative thoughts create self-fulfilling prophecies. So, and I think that's pretty self-explanatory right there. It pretty much says, the obvious. You're sort of stuck in that negative feedback loop. Something here about emotional or financial difficulty as well, in isolation, abandoned. That's what goes through with this card. Not good enough, ashamed. But again, this is where you have to sort of look at what's the false belief. Is everything you do, has everything been a failure? Has everything, do you dislike everything about yourself or whatever? Like, I'm just kind of using broad sweeping sort of scenarios here, but it's, break it down into, um, things about yourself, you know? And just because somebody else doesn't like it, who cares? Right? Okay, so this is Page of Ariel. An excellent opportunity will be offered to you. Scholarships for the pursuit of education, time to get to work. So some of you may be going back to school or at least contemplating some kind of level of education. So I do feel like that next to the star card as well and the seven of Raphael. A lot of these are very positive cards, but your initial card was to make some changes with the five. So when we get to the star card, a dream is coming true. Believe in yourself. The end of a difficult situation. I think even in the other reads that I did, there was also the world card came out quite a bit. So that's when you start to integrate parts of yourself and really get an understanding of a situation. But either way, this is healing on the way. So the struggle doesn't define you. It's just something that you went through where there's now hope and emotional recovery and inspiration. Of course, it's coming from you. It's generated from you. It's not the external world making those differences. It's you and your own power. And again, to the page. So an excellent opportunity is going to be offered to you, something around school. So it could be something around getting to work. You know, you could be getting a job. There could be something that's coming, opportunity for you to learn. Whether this is financially, education, healing, but it's definitely something that is very practical and it's committed growth and building structure. When we get to the Seven of Raphael, time to make a decision, be clear on what you want, take action. There's a need for detoxification. So the things that are, you know, not in line with who you want to be, you're going to have to let those go. So that means that you're taking action, detoxifying negative thoughts, negative behaviors, you know, anything that you were doing that was making you less than and making you feel worse. So this is where you start to reflect on your options and what were the things you were avoiding, how were you escaping, and now how do you get back to not feeling numb, you know, you're actually starting to feel the body. Because when you're in touch with the body and, you know, you start to feel things in that way through the senses, you actually become less anxietied and less overwhelmed, meaning, you know, the emotional fog starts to disappear, the paralysis starts to disappear because you're carrying your energy. So you're in that space where you start to heal your, you know, feel your heartbeat or feel the breath. You know, you start to think differently because you're now getting out of your head. So when we get to the two of Raphael, there's something here with that, and you're also with the Emperor, meaning there's a level of control that you're taking back here. So two of Raphael, of course, it can be a connection, somebody that doesn't have to be a love connection, but two hearts dedicated to creating something wonderful. Kindred spirits, don't give up on those you love. But it also is an indication that the bond between you and someone else or a close relationship, again, doesn't have to be romantic, but it does indicate that there is some slow progress, but it's spiritually protected. So you have soul connections around you. There is some level of shared growth and forgiveness. There's also something, you know, as a reminder, you're never truly alone, but you have to accept support when you want support. And it's okay to, you know, take a little bit more of the pain, but it's take a lot of the pain in one go or just take small bits and pieces as you grow through it. So you have to cleanse the confusion and get rid of some and bring some peace back into your life. And that peace comes from making peace with yourself initially. So you're not abandoned here. This is where we're, you know, you're in that space of soul lessons, and there's a lot of transformation and clarity coming through this in this period for you. I would definitely say, you know, the challenge is, you know, to stay open. Um, and know that there's some hope here for you, because it may not be seen just yet, but there's a lot of cards of practicality means you're moving into that. So again, I feel like, you know, hydration and rest and, you know, being writing down some things that actually give you that you can be grateful for. You know, are you alone in the world? Are there people that support you? Are there, even if things are imperfect, do you still have a morsel of something that you can build on? No matter how small, you know, this is how you take back your power and regain some sense of structure or routine. Most importantly, I think routine, because, you know, when you build up a routine, it becomes habit. If your habit is always to think negatively, you're going to have to reverse that habit. Everything that was shaming you or putting you in a bad space, you have to reverse that and able to kind of and believe in yourself again. So I feel like in the next 2 weeks, that's where you're starting to get some clarity. By next month, I feel like there's some kind of breakthrough that comes through. And by the end of next month, and then kind of further out, deeper emotional relationship or healing that starts to come through, things start to harmonize around, for you at that time. But I feel like, again, just a reminder, negative thoughts create self-fulfilling prophecies. So again, it's not, a card just of material struggle with that five of Ariel. It's also about emotionally feeling exiled or isolated. So again, that hardship that you feel like you need to carry the burden alone is not accurate. It's how you think it is, but it's really not how it is. You have support around you, but you have to welcome it in. And it won't be on your timeline. It means that things have to slowly unfold, as they work together. But I just feel again, you're afraid to be vulnerable, you're distorting the truth. And I feel like, you do have help that's near. And I feel like you just need to reach out. You need, I feel like you need to shift your internal talk, from I'm alone to I'm supported. And I feel like you need to work on the tools, the tools for clearing that scarcity mindset. I don't have enough, I'm not enough. Well, think of it this way. If you're at your lowest point, you can only go up. You have to welcome you have to welcome the things. When you want something bad enough, you will do the work to get there, no matter how painful, no matter how, rough the situation is. You keep going consistently until you get to the other side of things. And daily grounding is a really good way of doing that, with a little bit of meditation or something to start your day. And again, you can do, a colored ball, blue or orange or purple or whatever it is for you, and just meditate on that for about a minute or two before each day starts. Reframe the negative self-talk. Catch yourself when you start saying, I'm not good enough. I am good enough. You know what I mean? Catch yourself. And who's telling me that? You know what I mean? Become the version of yourself that you would want. Like, if you were to say to somebody who is also in your same position, would you say, oh, you're right, you're not good enough? No, you're going to talk to yourself in the same to someone else that was going through a situation, and say, well, here's the news that you can kind of get past, this situation. Here's how you can show up for yourself. Here's how you can reframe, no one helps me, to I am interesting enough that everybody starts to, I can network. I can figure out who it is that wants to help me or can help me in a situation. So again, the healing is real with that star card. The page of Ariel says the efforts are small to start with, but it's effort nonetheless, and it's your commitment that matters the most. And again, there was also that Seven of Raphael, which does hate a certain level of detox, is kind of having to be, you need to detox mentally and emotionally. You can't just fix one area and then ignore all the rest, because the body works as a system. You're not in this alone. And it's about, I'm supported. I'm worthy of support. It's a wake up call to, you know, find your tribe, find the people that actually do have something that you connect with. Now, we're going to get right into the last cards here, which are the financial aspects of things. So, into the Fool. So, the Fool card is all about a new journey. Something is coming here in the next couple of months, like a new job or something here. This is you still standing. This is you, getting ready to go into something new. It's not a cult of any sort, but the Nine of Wands does certainly indicate that you're weary. You've been in this place for a long period of time, but you're almost at the 10, so that means you're almost through to the very last. You might have one little last test of stuff to kind of deal with, but for the most part, you're getting through it. You're pushing through. You have the King of Swords. This is all about, that mentor, that boss, or Libra, Gemini, Aquarius energy that might be coming through, that may be key in the month of May, that's helping you to sort of, move ahead. And then we also have the Magician. So this one's about manifestation power. It's about skills and timing and things aligning. And it's also about creating financial improvement for yourself, but more about tools and resources. And I feel like the powerful sign right here that you are about to make some progress, especially when it's followed by the Two of Cups. This could be somebody you trust. This could be a creation or something like that, or even a job offer through someone that you know. But either way, the job offer is real. It is here with the Ace of Pentacles. So again, and you also had the Fool. So this is something new. It's a whole new beginning. It's some kind of breakthrough as well in terms of new income stream that might be coming in early to mid-June. But I feel either way, it's a relationship somehow that, or a connection to someone you know that's helping you to get into this space. But like I said, overall, I feel, sorry, one sec, guys. I feel like as far as career paths, if we were just to kind of generally look at things here, I feel like in some ways, for some of you, this could lead to media or public relations or sales. For others, it's some kind of work that would involve promotion or reward or something like that. Maybe even for recent work that you've done. But I just feel like there's leadership training or something that's also relevant here. Some career paths that might be coming through. Again, for some of you, will be in around emergency response, law enforcement, journalism, engineering, something kind of strategy oriented as well. And that was cards that I had over here. Sorry, I was looking at them when I should have been showing you guys. So these are the cards that I pulled in terms of careers that I feel like you would be kind of aligned with. Stand up for what you believe in, have confidence, claim your power. Congratulations, you've done a wonderful job. Time to move on to the next project, scholarships, promotions. Time to move quickly, choose logic over emotion and sudden changes. 3 of Gabriel, prosperity arising from wise plans. Time to take the next step, optimistic plans that turn out better than expected. The Moon, an opportunity to improve your plans, listen to your intuition for accurate guidance, face your fears and grow stronger. Empress, time to act upon your plans. Creativity is rewarded, luxurious, abundant resources. So all of these fields, especially this one here, I mean, there's lots about, problem solving, courage under pressure, engineering, strategy, even software's coming in with that. But definitely, cards that kind of speak to law enforcement, with the Knight of Michael, and journalism, emergency, like I said, response, something like that, are also things that are a part of that. The 3 of Gabriel, kind of the 3 of Wands, is still, that's in around anything that involves planning. That's also anything that involves project management, stuff like that. Could also be international long-term work, tech startups, anything like that. But also very creative ventures, that kind of thing. Big picture thinking, because it's 3 of Wands basically is the 3 of Gabriel. And for others, Moon is also here. That's creative. It's music, film, writing, healing, psychology, counseling, spiritual work, anything like that. It's anything dealing with the intuition and the emotion. And the very last one was the Empress. So cards around that one would be design, could be childcare, could be healing, gardening, anything that's creative. And it can still be owning your own business, because leadership cards were also here. But either way, I still feel like there's collaboration about a new job coming late October. And like I said, there's still something here as far as you being ready. Like I say, you're ready, because you're on the brink of a new understanding. You're seeing the truth about yourself, your path. And I just feel like now that once that happens, you're faced with that hardcore reality, and now you realize it's not easy, and you get sharp, hyper focused is what I would say. And I think that's Ace of Swords just kept coming in and coming in and coming in. But you have so many cards, again, of, a lot of happiness ahead of you. It's long term. So it's not something that's happening in the next month or two. This is long term effort and work. So it's consistent. And I feel like that's who you are. 9 of Cups, 10 of Pentacles. There's a level of consistency here. That's you showing up for you. And I feel like this is really get hyper focused. You know when to pull back. You will know when to pull back. But mostly it's getting your mind right, and able to go forward. So that's what I'm seeing here. That's what I have for you. Keep moving forward, Cancers, and we'll see you in the next read. Thanks for showing up, guys.